Please take your seats. Welcome back. We are going to take the next presenter. Please take your seats. The next presenter is Mr. Karl Rabukerman from Agri Western Cape. Okay, can you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly declare that the information you're going to provide to this panel today will be the truth and the whole truth? Please state your name and your designation at Agri Western Cape.
Chair, my name is Karl Rabukerman. I'm the CEO of Agri Western Cape. We're doing a presentation today. We've seen a lot, we've heard a lot. We're not going to repeat what has been said, but I'm just going to put the agriculture perspective on the table for you. What is the effect going to be on the suggestion that is on the table and how to manage it? Agri Western Cape represents approximately 4,000 producers in the Western Cape. Why are we here today? We are here due to the MYPD 4 application of 290 billion, 252 billion and 291 billion up to the year 21-22. Agri Western Cape was requested also to submit for comments regarding the impact of this power utilities request price increase on the agri sector is going to be. There is an inextricable link between the financial sustainability of Eskom and the economy as a whole, particularly as represented by Eskom customers. And therefore, we are thankful for the chance that we are given to do the presentation here today. The importance of agriculture in the above debate is that the Western Cape has the most diverse agriculture sector in the country, with horticulture, agronomy and livestock fields. Agriculture creates a substantial demand for goods and services, especially in the rural areas. The impact of agriculture on other sectors in terms of forward and backward linkages is considerable. The impact of sustainable electricity supply on irrigation agriculture and the cold chain for perishable products and milk production is crucial. The cold chain requirements on export standards must be maintained to protect our international markets. About 70% of agricultural output is used as an intermediary product in other sectors. Agriculture as agro-processing absorbs 22% of the workforce in the province, broken down in 71% unskilled, 25% semi-skilled, and 4% skilled. Agriculture in the Western Cape employs plus minus 20% of the national agri workforce, the largest in relation to other provinces due to labour-intensive agriculture enterprises in the horticulture industry and the related demand for both permanent and seasonal workers. Agriculture and agro-processing in the Western Cape are responsible for 45% of all exports and 25% of South Africa's food supply is produced by irrigation-related and energy-intensive industries. The Western Cape agriculture sector represents 54 billion of gross value addition. What is the impact going to be on food security? We have taken note of what the CEO this morning said of Eskom and what has been put into place. But Eskom has from early back as the old agri-elect days been a strategic part in agriculture from farm to fork, not only in the production and processing, but also in securing power inputs for security systems for the support of rural safety, a major crisis at the moment that we are having. The proposed revenue application will definitely have a major negative impact on agriculture sustainability, economic survival. Serious consideration should be given to food security that meets the dietary requirements of all South Africans. Agriculture supplies the biofuels for our body. Which other industry in the world, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, embraces you 24 hours a day? Food and fiber. All the ladies are beautiful dressed today. How many times did we take coffee, lunch and breaks? Everything that is agriculture. The current climatic conditions, water restrictions, rising input costs, and the exchange rate on the agriculture inputs have a severe impact on agriculture. A sharp increase in electricity costs, as suggested, will put agriculture cash flow under pressure, as electricity cost is a major variable cost contributor. Remember, agriculture is a price taker and does not have the luxury of a regulating clearing account such as Eskom to make good on revenue losses. If we just look at the 7 billion that we spent on electricity at farm level in 2017, and we escalate that with 3 years of 15%, the increase is going to be 52%. If we add the 19% for this year and not the RCAs for the next 2 years, we will get to 57. So if we look at that, we're going to jump from 7 billion to 11 billion, of which at the moment agriculture cannot afford. Effectively, agriculture will be hit by a double increase in electricity cost and an increase in lime cost. The effect of this will force the industry to research and develop more cost-effective forms of power supply to take the farms off the grid. We are aware of wine cellars that are far advanced in solar power to alleviate the current electricity cost and the negative effect of load shedding. The constant threat of load shedding, especially during agricultural peak production season, will have a devastating effect on irrigation and the cold chain. The agriculture producer carries this loss of reduced income and probably the loss of its export market share. If we look at the governance and liability context, the taxpayer money is wasted in times where the South African economy and SOEs, of which Eskom is one, is facing serious challenges. Irregularities and the lack of corruption governance harm the public's perception and trust. The question that needs to be asked is, why is the Department of Energy, Nersa, the portfolio committees of energy and state enterprises, Parliament and Cabinet did not intervene to protect South Africa's growth and our well-being from this current disaster? Consumers and business fund the government via taxes, so government funding is obtained from the taxpayer. The government guarantees on the back of the taxpayers' money. Now we must fund Eskom with the increased tariff, which is not affordable. Eskom implicitly admitted that they are in financial distress. Clearly, the present situation calls for a strategic intervention and reform to survive. Eskom should not be allowed to transfer the cost of their mismanagement to the consumer. Agriculture is a price-taker industry with no government support. Constant increases above CPI, as suggested, will weaken agriculture's profitability further. High electricity tariffs will force the agriculture industry to look at alternatives. Eskom customer losses will result in higher unit costs for the few that will have to pay it. Over time, Eskom has managed itself into a death spiral where its price structures reduces demand and even higher price increases are required to support revenue needs. This is the no-win situation. What is our recommendations? Nersa, government and Parliament should give serious consideration to life after the current Eskom. The current situation is not sustainable. Things never change by fighting the existing reality. To change something or a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Serious consideration must be given to sell-off portions of ESCOM to create a public-private partnership. The monopolistic stronghold that ESCOM has over the power supply chain must be terminated. Competition has never been bad for any industry. ESCOM should be much more lenient to IPPs. Agriculture can then establish electric farms to support the current electricity grid with more economic and favorable unit costs and decrease the risk of ESCOM's current unstable supply. Also, agricultural producers are currently being penalized for channeling electricity to the grid, and ESCOM should give urgent attention to this. I've also taken note that the first flow of electricity in the Northern Cape has taken place in December. In conclusion, the problem at hand with respect to ESCOM and the concomitant MYPD4 application are clearly multidimensional, whilst the solution are equally not clear. Clearly, without a significant decrease in cost, a significant increase in tariffs, or combination of both options, the debt levels will increase, either leading to further demands on the fiscus or guarantees or direct government support, or further demands for tariff increases will become even more excessive. Cross-subsidization, especially aimed at rural areas, will also likely come under scrutiny, which will certainly impact on the agriculture sector as well. With an election on hand, government may opt for an option which on face value will appear to benefit the consumer, i.e. to once again opt for a physical contribution of some kind. Government debt at current relative high levels is likely to increase further with a further negative impact on credit ratings over the wide front. Further demand for taxes to increase and ultimately upward pressure on the interest rates. The physical route has clearly been exhausted, especially given additional demand by other SOEs functioning equally dismayed. The situation at present is one where ESCOM requires a 15% tariff increase over the next 3 years, while a further RCA recovery of almost 33 billion is apparently justified given Nersa's rules on this regard. The outcome of these realities is that on municipal level, tariff increases of up to 20% is possible. The latter will in many cases be unaffordable. Given that the situation appears to be almost insurmountable, solutions must be sought on all forms, increasing efficiency, reducing operational costs, reduction in the personal corps, re-evaluation of existing contracts, and likely also to the level and need of current cross-subsidies and special pricing arrangements should be considered. Coal contracts should also be re-evaluated in view of pricing arrangements, and although not preferred with tongue in the cheek, export taxes on coal could also be considered to help fund the ESCOM's burden. Be it as it may, it does not seem as if consumers will have to, it does seem as if consumers will have to make some kind of additional direct contribution to tariff increases, because the unintended consequences of delaying the process may in future prove to be even more severe. We do not support the 15%. We can look at the CPI, but like they say, we are born free, but don't tax us to death. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oberman. There are some few questions of clarity from the members of the panel. I'll start with Mr. Chris.
Thank you very much, I would just like just one thing. From my side, I hope that the presentation will provide more input that will assist in terms of the socio-economic analysis, the socio-economic effect analysis, in as far as maybe the effect that this will have on the agricultural sector landscape or the economic landscape, as far as the sector is concerned, jobs, etc. in the sector. That will then assist in terms of looking at the question that will come also where you talk of agriculture being a price taker and not having government support to allude to whether you're just talking in terms of electricity or in water context. And in terms of the recommendations also, I note, for example, bullet 5, if you can be more explanatory, that would assist as to the kind of intervention that you're looking at. But the presentation is appreciated. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Just two small questions. You're saying that you've been penalized. Sorry, I'm just going to get this wording that you're using. You're saying agricultural producers are currently being penalized for channeling electricity to the grid, and ESCOM should give attention to this. Can you just elaborate how this is happening, why, how you're being penalized, and is it municipality, is it ESCOM, and how is this happening? And the second issue, on page 3 of your talk, you know, with regards to off-grid power, are you able to indicate how many of your members or the extent of off-grid electricity that is in that your members have put in place, and how pervasive is it, and is it are all those figures taken into account when ESCOM do their sales forecast? And finally, just to confirm, are you saying you support the tariff application by ESCOM or not? I know at the end there you're saying, you know, it sounds that you're going to have to make some sort of direct contribution. What contribution do you think RCA would be comfortable with?
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Swanton.
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Brien. I think probably my question is related to what Mr. Modise has already asked, but in your recommendations you say that ESCOM must be lenient to IPPs. It's not clear to me what you mean exactly by that. If you consider both applications in terms of the costs related to the power that comes from IPPs, how do you link that to ESCOM being lenient? If you can just clarify that issue for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you. On the social economic analysis of the job losses, is that when you look at electricity, and one will look at the combination of agricultural production with the effect that we've had with the drought and the effect that we're having when there is a massive load shedding that's happening, it's got an effect on the perishable products that we are producing. And that once again gives us a loss in the production channel. The effect that we're going to have on job losses will be to the detriment of the effect of the additional costs where we cannot produce at the economic viable price food that we can sell into the market that we're going to get our price. That's why we're talking about ourselves as price takers. A farmer cannot go and barter with his produce that he's produced. He's got to take what the market offers him, and it's a perishable product. And if he doesn't take it or leave it, then the possibility is there that he's going to produce at a loss, and he will withdraw completely out of producing, for instance, certain vegetables. The situation that we've had with the drought was that we withdrew completely out of the vegetable production. We needed the water for the long-term crops like the trees. But we've also got a crisis that when there is not sufficient power to pump the water from point A to point B, we must make sure that the water that we've got available there at that point in time is for the long-term investment crops to see that they can be sustainable and to move on with that. On point 5, the fees will lead by double the increase in electricity and the line cost. Is that the one that you've been spoken to? Is If you look at it, agriculture, we've got a fee on line, on distribution, and also on produce that, on the Eskom that we are purchasing. Now, with the increase also going up constantly on electricity that is being purchased, that also goes up with us. In certain areas, especially in our deep rural areas, there are limited months that we are making use of electricity in those areas. There's other times that we don't make use of it, so we've got to pay the line cost, although we're not using electricity. And that is the double whammy that we are getting at the moment, that we've got to find a way around it to make it more profitable for us as agriculture to produce the sustainability of the rural areas. The grid penalization, as you are aware, that Agri-SA has got a team that's been working, I think, for the last 5-6 years already, where the green renewable energy is part and parcel of the discussions, and the problems that we had to get contracts and to go into full production that we can supply and sell to Eskom and the poster on and to get the credits. And if we cannot get that on the route at the moment, that is where we are sitting, and we need to have a dual partnership with Eskom. How we can handle this, and we can take it further. If we look on the renewable energy and we look at all the wind and the solar farms that we can put in, especially in the deep rural areas where it's not a problem for wind generation, and that is something for that area that can create an economic activity in the rural area, which will sustain the rural area and sustain the local people that is also working in those areas. And that is what we're asking. Let's reach hands out to one another and see how we can make this thing work. And this is one of the new ideas and the new ways that we're going to do. That's why we're asking, have we ever thought life after Eskom? If we look on the fourth generation that's coming through at the moment, where are we in our electricity cycle in this whole process? Electricity in agriculture is a golden thread that goes right through everything. How many members? That is difficult at the moment to say. I can say to you that I'm part of a task team that is also looking, especially in the wine industry, on the wine cellar side, and there is some of our farms already that is very near the situation where they're going to be completely off the grid and they can look after themselves for electricity. Support the tariff applications. I'm coming back to where I said the penalization. We need support, and then Eskom also needs the support on both of us to get to a win-win on that. This is a solution for what after Eskom, and how Eskom can most probably be part of this whole situation and how we can manage. I hope I've answered all the questions.
There's just a follow-up question.
So what I'm misunderstanding is whether, when you say you're being penalized, are you saying you're not able to reach agreement with Eskom? Is Eskom not talking to you? Is it a tariff issue? Is it a net metering problem? So are your members physically selling power onto the grid or not?
There is members at the moment that I believe can supply. There is a member now that has supplied where the first credits came through. But it was a very long process, 5, 6, 7 years to get through it, to get to that point. But if we can get the assistance, we can actually go in and open up in agriculture a total new unit in agriculture, like for livestock farming. You can have electricity farming also.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Okamaki, for your time and for the presentation and the input. Perhaps the input that you need to just expand on is the impact of this tariff on the agricultural sector, especially the Western Cape. The summary that you have here doesn't really deal with the Okay, if you could provide that information in the next 7 days.
Thank you, ma'am.
The next presenter is, we still don't have Gordon Makai. Okay, all right. She missed the opportunity, I believe she missed the train, and she won't be able to present them. We're going to take a presentation from Sandra Dixon, GSA. Listen, may you please raise your right hand? Okay, yeah. Do you solemnly declare that the information you're going to provide to this panel today will be the truth and the whole truth? Yes. Right, thank you. Please state your name and your designation at GSA and what the organization is about. Yes, please.
Good afternoon, guys. I've got a slightly different presentation because I think by now we all know what the problem with Eskom is. I think everybody knows, so let me start with my thing. I am part of DSA, but first of all, I'm also part of Stop COCT, which is an organization, a group, an action group in Cape Town that fights the city of Cape Town on every single tariff and bylaw and anything that the city of Cape Town is enforcing on us. So that is really my background. But now as a second bit, I'm also part of the NPC, Dear South Africa, and I can tell the Nersa panel that the emails that they're getting, the emails that you received in November, 60,000 of them, they came via our website. So basically, what we stand for is to promote public participation. In other words, to get people like you out here and participate in government decisions. Because where I started out, I came in on an electricity issue in the city of Cape Town. Thank you. In the city of Cape Town, where 100,000 households got a 74% electricity increase. Now the city denied it, and we fought it, and I came to the conclusion that after the horse had bolted, there's nothing that you can do. And then I came to Nersa in 2017, and I thought, now what is this public hearing thing, and what is public participation? And I discovered that in our constitution, we are allowed to participate in government decisions. It's in sections 59, 72, and 118. And there's even an act that allows us to do what I'm doing. So the purpose of DSA is to promote public participation. We have a reach of about 600,000 people. Where do I get that from? So far as public participation calls for written comment from the city of Cape Town and wider throughout South Africa, we have sent 600,000 emails to government. And our focus is, of course, all spheres of government, because it's not just me here in Cape Town. Okay, the campaigns that we ran, the one that I would like to highlight is the land expropriation. We sent the government 230,000 emails regarding the land expropriation. Then we also ran one, and this is where I want to actually ask Nersa something, the registration of small-scale energy generators. Now, they put that forward, and it was retracted a month or so later, and there's a PPP out at the moment for greater than 1 gigawatt. But the city of Cape Town is forcing us, without the regulators' knowledge, to register every single small-scale solar panel that we have on our roofs. In other words, under 1 kilowatt, megawatt. Oh, I'm going to the G's. Okay, so we think that is unfair. Why is Nersa? How can Cape Town, the city of Cape Town, be allowed to do this and cause a whole lot of unhappiness? Because what happens with this registration is that people that had put solar panels and small-scale generators on their roofs, They are now forced to become compliant, to get some engineer to come and look at the structure of your house to make sure that your roof is not going to fall in. But it's going to cost us money to do that. So that is the question I have, is how can the City of Cape Town do that? Now this came out of my 2017 presentation. We were told by Eskom that there were 5,600 gigawatts surplus in 2017. Now where is it? What happened to it? I just can't understand where is it. Right, now my actual 2 slides that's the most important is last year Nersa okayed a 5.23% increase to Eskom. We heard this many times. By the time it reached a Cape Townian in the street, we paid 8.14% on average. I do understand that there's a 3-month lag. In other words, Eskom's increases come in April and the municipality comes in July. Right, so that does 1.7%, but I just want to add another 1.whatever% to this. And the reason that I got after I wrote to the CFO is that they are charging us because they expect to sell 2% less electricity. Is that fair? I mean, and it came out this morning where people said, if you now sell less, do you just make your thing more expensive to keep your revenue at the same levels? Plus, a levy of 150 Rand was added to many of our bills. So the overall 5.23% increase eventually turned out to be 18%. Now, this is a rather complicated graph and I will go quickly over it. But the thing that you look at the bottom, I have the units that you buy. And this red line, the one that comes from the top to the bottom, is the actual percentage increase, which is on the right hand. Sorry guys. Okay, so I think one can chop off that first high end, but what it says is that somebody that buys 50 units of electricity got a 160% increase. Then when you go higher, there we go. Right, so somebody that bought 50 units would have paid, had an increase over there of almost 160%. So one can maybe cut that off because we have a lifeline and people that buy that type of electricity do get lifeline and they get rebates and stuff like that. But if you look here at from about 600 units onwards, there you can clearly see that the increase is this 18%. And we plotted this from the City of Cape Town's data that's freely available. Right, now this levy. In 2017, this levy was proposed, the 150 Rand levy. It was rejected by public participation because the city got 1,000 objections. So the mayor in her speech then delayed the levy. July 2018, the levy just appeared again. I saw the document that was sent to Nersa. Nersa okayed it. So my question is, and I'm sorry to ask you guys so many questions, on what basis did you okay it and allowed a 5.23% increase to become 18%? And the point that I want to make about that is that the man in the street is sick and tired of these high bills. Now the 14,000 people in my action group sends us bills regularly, and we try and help the people with the complicated electricity bills that they have. And we see all these increases. We see people that go and buy 100 Rands worth of electricity. And according to the rates, they should get about 50 units of electricity. After these increases, it dropped to about 42 units for electricity. So it is just a terrible situation for the person in the street that goes and buy electricity. And then to top the whole thing off is if people get into arrears with their rates or with their water account, the city goes and deduct some, like up to 50% of the units that the people buy to recover the money that they don't have. So this person that used to get 50 units, we get people that get 20 units for 100 rands. It is just shocking if this happens. Okay, now here why? We lodged a formal complaint at Nersa, but we never got a reply. So I plea with Nersa, municipalities are gaming the system unchecked. They need to be checked. And I'm not talking about the ones that's not paying. I'm talking about the ones where the people are paying. Right, and then just general things, the Eskom demand curve is flat. I mean, we all agree on that, even though the Eskom are projecting that the revenue will increase. I don't know how they do that. The municipality's demand curve is flat, and the City of Cape Town expect a 2% drop in sales for the foreseeable future for the next 3 years. But what they're doing, they're making up, they're not prepared to take a drop in revenue, they just up the prices. So they inflate our electricity tariffs in order to keep up their revenue. Is that fair? Right, then salary increases are far below 10%, so I'm getting now to my objection against the 15% increase, as well as the 4.41, and rightly so, you add the two together. Now, people that does accountancy will know that if it's a 20% increase, it is compounded. So it is 20%, the next year it's a little bit more, the next year it's a little bit more. So in effect, the 20% becomes 72%. Now add the 3 or 4% that the municipalities add as well. So what is going to happen is that if you are paying 1,000 rands today for your electricity, you're going to pay 2,000 in 3 years' time, if this is allowed to come on. So I'm asking that Eskom should not do a compounded increase of 15, 15, 15. They should take the compound out of it. And then the future, the trust in Eskom needs to be restored. We expect, I'm done. I expect them to show more vision, and I want them to remove the throttle on the South African economy. Because if the throttle on the economy is taken away, our economy should be able to grow more than the under 1% where we are at now. And if it's a win-win situation, if the economy can grow, the electricity throttle is being taken away, and Eskom can hopefully sell more electricity, because that is the only way that Eskom is going to get themselves out of what the hole that they are in now. They need to push up revenue with real sales and the real selling of a real product, not inflating prices for nothing delivered. Thank you.
Very much, ma'am. We have the colleagues from the Electricity Department here that will assist you with regard to some of the questions and the issues that are still outstanding. One of them being the registration process or the registration requirements for the small-scale embedded generation. So there is Brian there, sitting over there, Brian Sinchoto. He's your guy. He's going to clarify all the questions that you have on the registration of the small-scale generation. And then with regards to the billing system and the tariffs that are approved by Nersa, again, Brian is the guy who's going to assist you with the clarification and reconciliation to look at the bill, and then other costs that are imposed by the municipality that are outside of the mandate of Nersa, such as maybe the levy or the other things. Brian will also be able to assist you on those questions. The third thing, again, is the complaint that you said you have filed with Nersa where you never received any response, Brian again will assist you with those treatments. So having said that, I do not think that there are any further questions. Thank you very much for your presentation, and all those issues will be clarified. Thank you. Thank you. The next presenter is Dr. Gardner. May you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly declare that the information you're going to provide to this panel will be the truth and the whole truth?
Yes.
Right. Please state your name as well as your the capacity in which you are doing your presentation today.
I'm Dr. John Gardner, and I'm my founder member of the Cape Wetlands Trust, involved in a lot of wetland projects, and also co-founder of the Cape Peace Centre, which is now the Peace Centre, involved in a lot of post-apartheid negotiations and problem solving. And maybe just as a little distraction from there, and also to use the poetic license, we in the charity found ourselves over-indebted to staff, too much staff, too little income, and we had to cut the cloth, and we had to pay our staff to get them off the books. Now, Eskom isn't exactly the same problem, but because it's a state-owned enterprise, it gets away with it. It's completely bankrupt, and yet it has all these staff members. If they were really serious and wanted to get rid of the staff, but also give them something to do, there are plenty of schools that could be re-maintained, and there are many holes in the streets which have never been maintained. So there is actually a lot of work to be done, a lot of aliens to be cleared. They might not get paid so well, but they certainly may not have a role if they've got a false CV, if they've been involved in corruption, or if their cadres who've been deployed. And there may well be people who have lost their job for whatever reason, who are old like myself, or oldish, and they could be re-employed. They have a lot of experience from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. But first of all, I think one has to look and see exactly, having worked as a doctor, analyze the problem and do a thorough examination. Now, there have been amazing presentations now about the problem from Bloma, from Outer, etc., etc. And that, I think, if you synthesize all that, you've done a pretty good diagnosis. Now, the treatment is unfortunately politically incorrect. And one of that is that you may have to lose jobs in the short term to prevent massive job losses in the longer term. So, do you take the medicine and move those people out from their incompetences and irregular appointments and corruption and take the cost, the political cost? Or do you just let the economy run down as it's been running down for years and losing 123,000 jobs at a time, every year? So, take the medicine if you want to cure the problem. And one says, what is the Eskom at the moment? Is it like a piece of wood which is riddled with borer beetle? And instead of treating the borer beetle, they give them a salary increase, so that eventually that wood will turn to dust. I mean, I know we all go to dust, but what is Eskom doing about the borer beetles which are eating away at them? And they are known. The whistleblowers, however, may not get the protection that they need, and that is a huge issue because of corruption within the police and the National Prosecuting Authority. So anything exposed could expose them. So there needs to be a much more robust space for whistleblowers so that they can be well maintained. Or is the Eskom like a wretched Tyrannosaurus which should have died a long time ago, and it's always hungry, and it's always thirsty, it's eating all the coal, it's drinking all the water, and mostly what comes out is poo, and hot air. So coal is a very destructive, in mining it uses a lot of water, which is competition for other people's water, and it creates enormous pollution. So the whole issue of renewables and the cost that coal actually imposes on the environment should be taken seriously into account. So what should one do once in Eskom and you've got all these meetings? What is 100 meetings a week? basically give everybody a lectern, cut the time, cut the number of meetings, and tell people you're going to stand and there's no food, there's nothing to drink. You'll cut down a lot of costs. So there are many ways. But then what do? You've got these 4, 8 wise men who, when they look at the whole, how much they've got to do, basically 2 of them run away. Too much work. So what do you do to give that the wise men a little bit more power? Firstly, you've got to analyze the problem. So maybe use an international company like Partners in Performance who go into distressed companies. They analyze, they look at short, medium, long-term outcomes of how to bring about a turnaround strategy, and they work with the management. And the companies where the management doesn't work fail. So there needs to be a compulsory element that those, if the directors or the people in responsible positions do not take the medicine, they basically are guaranteed to lose their job. So there has to be a consequence for not instituting the remedial processes that the 6 wise men and perhaps a company like Partners in Performance produce for them. They have to work with them and they have to implement the turnaround strategy. There are many other ideas that one can throw about, and maybe it needs more brainstorming of people like the people, the presenters, and small groups, and come out with solutions which are practical, they do the least possible harm, and they're accurate. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gardner. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of today's proceedings. I would like to thank everyone for the presentation and the audience for not disrupting our proceedings today and for staying until we finished today's program. I would like to also thank the members of the panel, the Nersa staff, as well as our interpreters and the translators. Thank you very much, and I hope that you have a good evening, and you will be here again tomorrow to support us and to also hear ESCOM's responses to some of the questions that were put forward by members of the panel, but also by some of the presenters today. So I'm wishing you well and to see you tomorrow. Thank you.
So we'll do that at the hotel then tomorrow.